Hey everyone, and welcome back to another mining chamber video. In this video, we will be going back to the RTX 3080 that I built a while back. As I show in that video, those cards get pretty hot and in return your hash rate drops. So in this video, we are moving it from an open airframe to a server case and see if that helps out with the temperatures. Now let's go ahead and get into it right after the intro. Before I get into the server case that I've got, I first want to give you guys some background information on this RTX 3080 build and what was going on with it so you guys understand why I'm trying different things to fix up the issue. Now before, I've made two different videos on the 3080, one is for the GPU overview and then the other one is a 6 GPU build of the 3080. Now this build worked out pretty well in the winter. It's still throttled, but it wasn't as bad as it ended up being in the summer, so my hash rate wasn't really that bad, so I didn't have to change any thermal pads or anything like that. But then the summer came. After the summer came, these 3080s did terrible. They dropped down way too much in the hash rate and they just became not worth the kidneys that I sold for them. But then one day on YouTube, I saw Red Panda Mining posting a server case for the RTX 3080s where he moved his as well in them and his temperatures got a bit better, so right away I decided to go with that route as well. Now I can change the thermal pads and that's usually the best solution for this, but I decided to go with a different path until I end up changing the thermal pads. Now in some scenarios, even after changing the thermal pads, if your ambient temperature is still hot, then your temperatures will struggle and you will thermal throttle. So do keep that in mind. You might have to try a couple of different methods to get the optimal results. Now before I tell you more about that server case, let's first have a word from our sponsor. This video is sponsored by Graphling.io. Graphling.io is a platform that gives you the ability to create different applications such as automating trades for arbitrage, monitoring your portfolio, and many other awesome ideas without the use of any code. They have a beautiful flowchart style programming that is well documented, and they have different social platforms that you can reach out to them and get assistance on there. You can create programs that also interact with Discord bots or Telegram bots, and to run the code, you can execute it directly on Graphling's network, which requires a small amount of GLQ token to be burnt. It is super cheap and a reliable way to automate tasks and build applications that you were always eager to start. As a software engineer myself, I will definitely be doing a couple of projects with Graphling.io, so stay tuned for that. Build, visualize, and automate tasks with Graphling using the link in the descriptions below. Now let's go ahead and get back to the video. The case that I was talking about earlier is the MineBox GPU case from mineshop.eu. Now this case comes at a cost of $735.50, but it is currently out of stock and it should be restocked sometime soon. This awesome server case comes with 4 high-powered fans and it comes with a 2500 watt power supply that only runs on 240 volt, and it also has a CPU, motherboard, RAM, and storage installed, which is really awesome and it's super convenient. Now for $735, in my opinion, it's a really good deal, especially now that all the mining motherboards are around $500 and up, and it's super hard to get your hands on them as well. And one of the best things about this case is it takes no risers at all. You plug the GPU directly into the motherboard, which is pretty convenient and also saves you some money there. There is enough space for your GPUs to fit in there. You can see as well the GPU size recommendation on the website, so it can fit up to 320mm long and up to 65mm thick. Now in my case, since I have 8 GPU slots and I only have 6 RTX 3080s, I ended up adding as well 2 RTX 3060 Ti's. So now this case is holding for me 8 different GPUs and it takes a lot less space and it's very compact and it's super convenient to install your hardware in it. So now more about the specs of this case and what you get when you order it. The motherboard comes with a lot of 6 pins on the board itself. Now there will be some confusion with powering your GPUs and how to power these slots on the motherboard, so I'm going to try to clarify it as much as possible right now. So first you have your fans cable, which you can see connected to the board directly. Now these fans are pretty loud, so they can go up to 70 to 80 decibels, so if you're planning on running this in your bedroom, then that might be an issue. But you can feel free to unplug the fans if your ambient temperature is fine, but don't close the case if you're planning on unplugging the fans, because you need to get that hot air out of there somehow. Now other than the fan plugs, there's also all these different 6 pins on the board itself. Now these 6 pins are for your motherboard and mainly they're powering your PCIe slots. And there's also a bunch of different 6 pins on the left side of the board. Now what you need to know about all these 6 pins is first you have the ones that are already plugged in. You'll see a couple of them plugged in here. Now those ones are for the PCIe slots of the motherboard itself. And as you can also see on the far left end, the last 2 are not plugged in, which is completely fine and you can leave those unplugged. Now for the other 6 pins that are right next to the ones for the PCIe slots, those are made for GPUs that need a lot of power. So as you can see, there's a bunch of ones that are on the left side, and what are those supposed to be used for is plugging into them another power supply. So using like a Bitmain power supply or just a server power supply in general, and then just plugging all these pins in there, and what that will do is it will give you power into the motherboard to be able to connect these black cables that comes with the case, and they are 6 to 8 pin. So that 6 pin plugs into the motherboard and then that 8 pin plugs into the GPU. Now why do we have that? Is because if you're for example running an RTX 3090 which consumes more than 300 watts, you're not going to be able to run that off of just the power supply cable, because the power supply cable can supply up to 280 watts and you only get 8 of them, so you have 8 of dual 8 pin cables. And if you try to run it on there, then eventually it will burn out. So now instead of running the entire GPU off of just the power supply cable, you can just plug one 8 pin of the power supply cable into the GPU and then the other 8 pin through the one that's connected to the motherboard, and it's getting power from that other power supply that's connected to the side ports. So it is a little bit confusing, but you only have to do this if you're using a 3090 as of now, or any GPU that uses more than 250 watts. Now for 3080s you're safe because you can use only 220 watts while you're mining, so you don't have to worry about that there. And if you still have questions on building an 8X 3090s in this case, then please check out Guntis Vitalin's video on this case where he builds 8 of the 3090s into it. Guntis Vitalins is the person behind mineshop.eu, and he's the one that sent me the case to use it for my 3080s, which I'm really grateful for. He's an awesome guy, and definitely check out his channel. He has really good content out there that you can definitely benefit from. I will leave the link for his channel in the descriptions below. So now that talks about the 3090s, but now let's go back to my case, which is the 3080s. So I've simply slid in my GPUs in there and made sure that I screw them properly. Now the GPU won't sit fully into that slot, but it will be completely fine. Just make sure that you actually got it into the slot itself and not on the sides of the slot. And then after that, for the power cables, you want to make sure you don't block your fan's path, because these fans pull a lot of air, so you don't want your power cables to come in the way and accidentally get sucked in there and cause a lot of issues. So make sure you either tuck them below the fans very neatly or above the fan. Now I've done it below the fans and it worked fine for me, but I feel like above the fans will be a lot more reliable and a lot more safer. Now one more thing that I need to cover about this case is the storage device that it comes with. Now for me, this storage device came with HiveOS installed, but you do have the option to choose from the website itself what operating system you want on there. Now you can also do no software, but then you do need to find a way to flash an operating system on that drive itself. The storage drive is an mSATA, so it's not an M.2, but it's just a similar concept and slower. So now that basically covers all the specs you need to know about this motherboard as well as the entire case in general. So now the real question is, did this help the temperatures for my RTX 3080s, or was it all for nothing? So I unfortunately messed up on making sure to record the temperatures that I was getting before moving them to the closed case, but I do have a picture that was a while ago that will give you a good idea of what was going on. So here in this picture you guys will be able to see that I have my fan speeds running at 90% and my GPU core temperatures were around 50 to 65, which is not so bad for core, but for the memory they were getting really hot, which leads to the thermal throttling. Now you can see here I have 2 GPUs at above 90 megahash, and then the rest of them are just plain out very bad. 2 of them are at 69 and then 1 of them is at 79, so I was losing out a lot of hash rate on these 3080s. Now after putting them in the server case, I will be honest, I've had a lot of different issues with the rig and it's not being stable at all, but it's not from the server case, but it's definitely something that I need to figure out what's causing it. But that doesn't stop us from getting some data. So I've had the rig run for almost an hour at most without crashing at all, but running for an hour the temperatures were not as bad at all. Now it was far from perfect, but it was also far from terrible. Now just to give you guys an idea of the temperature in the room, the temperature of the room is around 33 to 35 Celsius depending on all the rigs being on or not. Now since this rig has been turning off a lot, then the room temperature is a bit lower now, but when I turn on the rig and it runs for an hour, the temperatures don't get too bad and it runs for a hash rate not less than 70 megahash, which is really good in my opinion. At least it's one step forward, and instead of getting a total of 488 megahash, now I'm getting around 520 megahash just from the RTX 3080s, and then with the 3060 Ti you have the 120 more megahash. There is definitely a lot more room for improvement, and I will be tuning it and trying to figure out the best methods that I can do for this mining rig until I change the thermal pads. Now I'm not sure if I'll be making a video on changing thermal pads, but if you guys want that whenever I get them, then please let me know in the comments below. So now to give you guys my conclusion, I'm still in love with the case, and I love that it comes with everything, and all you have to do is just put in the GPUs and then do your operating system, and then you're all good to go. Now the fans are pushing air out as well as the GPUs are pushing air out at the same time, so there's nothing that's actually bringing air into the case itself because of the way that the fans are oriented, so you can feel free to try to switch the fans around and see if that helps your airflow better. Now the idea of having everything push out is so you can dissipate all the heat, but it might be better for you if you have something that pushes in air and then something that pushes out air. Now before we wrap up the video, the last video that I posted, the RX 6700 XT, I did a full review on that GPU, and then I told you guys for a lucky winner I will quote unquote give away the GPU for MSRP price. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to announce the winner of that MSRP price of the GPU, and if they don't get to me back in time, then I will pick another winner. So make sure if you haven't joined that, then feel free to open up the RX 6700 XT video and then comment where your region is and just leave a feedback in there, and then that will be good to go. So if the winner doesn't get back to me, then you have a chance of winning it in the next video. I might do this more often whenever I get a GPU and I pay for its scalper price or MSRP price. I will try to sell it to you guys for MSRP so you guys have a chance to jump into mining for a cheaper price. So the winner of the 6700 XT from the last video is Jamerson Brown. So Jamerson Brown, if you're watching this video, please make sure to get back to me over email, which is team@miningchamber.com, or you can just join the Discord and then message me there. I also left you a comment back to get your attention, so hopefully that works out. Now that wraps up the video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a thumbs up, and if you have any questions or feedback, leave it in the comments below. And if you're not subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe. We're going to be diving into some fun stuff very soon, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys again, and I hope you have a wonderful day.